That's it.
That's Braverman's in?
Yeah, right there.
Not
Wait,
River Falls.
something else. Somewhere. Yeah, that's where it was. That's where it was. I was trying to remember exactly where he said it was. That was just.
Okay. Ready? Meeting to order,
Probably
please.
working.
Mayor Zakowski,
Here.
Alderman Kittle,
Here.
Alderman Breeze,
Here.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Here.
Alderman Gartner,
Here.
Alderman Volkert, Alderman Montello.
Pledge allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America and to
Motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So moved. Any public comments?
Hyndon.
Okay. Here, a motion to approve the consent agenda with noting a donation of $250 for the Richmond Police Department K-9 program for from Ignite Dispensary.
I'll make the motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next item is the public hearing for the 2026 operating budget and 2026 through 2030 capital improvement plan. I declare the public hearing open.
And council. So in the packet are some slides that we will go through that highlight our conversations over the last 3 work sessions that we have held, kind of taking a more of a summary view of the 2026 operating budget and of the 2026 through 2030 capital improvement plan. I do have a number of things to kind of highlight, but feel free if there's questions as I'm going through those slides, certainly ask those. Otherwise, at the end too, we can address any questions that the council has. So starting that, if you could bring the slides up, Christy. Yes. And then slide 2. Just kind of again wanted to highlight the budget process. Our development of the budget process starts pretty much as soon as we adopt the prior year's budget. So starting in January, we're really looking at those capital improvement plans for the following year. And that takes us through a good portion of the first quarter of the year. And then in early spring, summertime, we start to begin working with conversations with the council, other boards and commissions in regards to establishing priorities for the upcoming budget. And then in early summer, we're having discussions with our department heads in regards to those budget priorities that we've heard from council. And then throughout the summer, our department heads are formulating those budgets and developing those budgets, which then gets sent to finance. We do a consolidation of the budgets, and then we bring forward the proposed budget as part of the August work session. And then we also have a second work session in September to go through additional items, and then a final work session in October before our budget hearing is held in November. As part of that, as I mentioned earlier, the council establishes those priorities each year for us. The priorities for the 2026 budget are very similar to prior year's budgets. The 5 kind of key components that are in your packet talk about revenue generation. This is looking for continuing to seek other alternatives aside from the tax levy that would help reduce the tax levy and that we assess to our community. So, examples of that would be grants, alternative revenue sources through shared partnerships or shared services. Financial sustainability, this is where we want to ensure that the policies that we have, we maintain, ensure that we continue to maintain our high credit rating of AA2. All of those things of financial responsibility and sustainability, those help lead us to maintain that high credit rating, which in turn we can obtain lower interest rates on the debt that we would have to issue in the future. Infrastructure over the last several years has been a very continued focus of the council, ensuring that the investment in our roadways, in our utilities, above ground and below ground are in good operable condition, and that is continued to progress in this budget that's before you. Economic development, so looking at ways that we can continue to expand our economy within New Richmond, and then a continued focus on planning, comprehensive planning, so that we are looking at not just today, but in the future and beyond. So in the if you can go to the next slide, Christy, thank you. As we talked through the last several budget work sessions, we've talked about the budget drivers. Some of those are listed on the slide before you. The library, we have a lease payment that is coming due for the new library space to the New Richmond Community Development Authority, who owns the building, and the library leases that space from them. The first payment would occur in 2026 of $630,000. The budget also incorporates a 4.1 cost of living adjustment, which is based on the Bureau of Labor Statistics Index, which is in compliance with our compensation policy. We have a 1% increase in our health insurance premiums from Medica. We have an addition of a 0.675 full-time equivalency custodial position, which would support the new library building once that is open. There were expenses historically that had not been incorporated into the airport's budget, so we have now factored those in as well. In 2026, we did not qualify for a payment through the state for what is called an expenditure restraint payment, which was about a loss of $55,000 in revenue that we needed to find alternative sources to fill that gap. And then we also are factoring in an increase in our lease revenue from our airport hangars, as well as community meeting room spaces that would be in the new library facility. And then we also, as in our budget work sessions, discussed an urban forestry fee, and that's proposed for the 2026 budget. That's also an agenda item later this evening. And finally, making a greater dissemination between park operations and where they had historically been accounted for. So we are now adding what is called the 155 fund, which will account for all park operations. So underneath the 2026 budget, it reflects a balanced budget, which means our revenues and our expenses are equal. We are not anticipating any use of unrestricted fund balance to fill any gaps or holes. So we have a total revenue and expenditures planned of $10,179,825. That represents an increase of $574,932, which is 6% increase from prior year's budget. Underneath this budget, it equates to a total levy of $8,214,586. That is an increase of $717,854 from prior year, or 9.58%. When we look at the levy is composed of 4 different segments. The first being the general fund, which accounts for the day-to-day operations of the city. So this would include public safety, library services, administration. It would include economic development, and so on. The levy for the general operations of the city is $6,382,730. It's an increase of $590,089, or 10.1% from prior year. Another component of the budget is the debt service levy. The debt service levy is dedicated to covering the annual debt payments that we owe to our creditors for our loans that we have taken out. The amount that is levied underneath the 2026 budget represents only 56% of our total debt service payments. So other sources are paying that remaining percentage. So those come from either our utilities or the tax increment districts. In 2026, our total debt service levy is $1,473,603, which is an increase of $64,762, which is 4.6% increase from prior year. The third component of our levy is the capital replacement levy. This provides funding for our shorter-lived assets that have a quicker turn in replacement. Those examples would be such as patrol vehicles, or other smaller types of vehicles or equipment for other departments. This levy has remained pretty flat over the years at $150,000. There is not a change from prior year as we're levying that full $150,000. And then the final levy is what's called a tax increment district levy. This levy captures tax revenues to support the economic growth and infrastructure improvements within the designated areas of the city. The levy for 2026 is $208,253, an increase of $63,000 or 43.38% from prior year. Based upon the 2026 proposed levy, the impact on a median home value of $350,000 for just the city's portion of the tax bill is a slight increase of $17 per year, which is $141 per month. It translates into a mill rate for the city's portion of $5.10 per $1,000 of assessed value, which is a slight increase of a nickel over prior year 1%. I'd also just, can you go back to that one, Christy? I'd also just draw attention to the last column on this particular slide, which talks about the change due to the new library building and that debt service payment coming on, or that lease payment coming on to the New Richmond Community Development Authority. So had we not found other ways to reduce the levy, the component of the library is adding $156 to a total tax bill. However, the impact that a resident would see at that median house value is only $17. So in order to reduce that down, we found other methods to lessen that impact of other needs throughout the city on the full tax burden of the taxpayer.
But specifically, just to make it easier for people to understand, if the library financially were not there, that reduction on a $350,000 would have been a reduction of $139.
Correct. Going to the next slide. This is just showing the mill rate kind of year over year progression, which I touched base on. So in 2026, the mill rate for technically 25 would be $5.10, which is that 5 cents per $1,000 value of increase. And also in your packet this evening, we were talking about the 2026 capital improvement plan. And that capital improvement plan, we also bring forward 4 additional years, so it brings us through 2030. As part of the capital improvement plan, it's a 5-year plan, but we adopt 1 year at a time. So this evening, when you consider the action on this, we would only be adopting the plan. Any financing or the project specifically themselves come back before the council for final authorization to move forward and implement those. But underneath the 2026 capital improvement plan, it represents a total investment of $12.2 million. The proposal for financing that we're proposing, about 69% of that funding would come from debt. 26% of the funding would come from impact fees or reserves that we currently have on hand. And then the remaining 5% is planned from the grants that we have received. When we look at the projects that would require combined financing, we look at about $8.5 million that would be required for a 2026 debt issue that's combined for both utility and city projects. Some of those significant projects or the key projects that are incorporated in that $8.5 million for borrowing would be the construction of Water Tower number 3, the replacement of our 2006 rescue fire truck, and then it would be including the refinancing for our interim state trust fund loan that we took out earlier of $1.6 million for the library. And then this slide just kind of highlights farther the debt service levy and the breakdown of that. So in regards to at the end of this year, we anticipate our outstanding general obligation debt to be at $22.1 million. For the 2026 total debt service payments, as I mentioned, 56% is coming from the levy. The remaining is being paid through other sources, so 32% of that total is being paid through our water and sewer and electric utility, and then 12% is being repaid through our stormwater utility impacts fees, and then the golf course amount as well.
Rand, so where you say 22.1 million outstanding GO debt, there's the second, well, that doesn't include the library at all.
Correct.
And
because-
it also doesn't include, because we don't have a final home for whatever the balance is going to be, which I think we forecasted at 1.5. But that's not included in that number either.
So in the 22.1, that is included because
That 1.5.
it's actually the 1.6 because that's what we took out for the state trust fund loan. We don't anticipate that we will have to draw that full 1.6.
Right.
Yep. Correct. Yep. So that is all of the prepared material that I have this evening. I do want to thank the council, all of our board and commission members, our department heads, and city staff, and especially the finance department. It takes a lot for this budget to be brought forward to the council. And I just want to extend my sincere appreciation for everybody's time and commitment in the process.
As the head of the finance department, I'll say you put a lot of effort in this. Other people did too, but somebody has to lead the charge, and I think you've been pretty efficient.
Yeah, actually, I want to go further and say you did an outstanding job, but I am going to ask you a question. Our tax increment income, the end of next year, will grow demonstrably, I'm guessing, because of the assessed value of the apartments above the library, which really aren't in this. That value that we're collecting the TID money from. So that will grow, yeah. No, great job.
Yep. With that, kind of the actions once the public hearing is closed and the recommendation would be twofold. One would be to adopt the levy in the amount of $8,214,586. And then the second action would be to adopt the 2026 capital improvement plan.
Separate motions on that.
You can combine
Gotta
it
close
into
the-
one.
We gotta
Yep,
close the
yeah, I
public.
know, yeah.
Any further questions right now? Does anyone else wish to speak? Does anyone else wish to speak? Does anyone else wish to speak? I declare the public hearing closed for the 2026 operating budget and 2026 to 2030 capital improvement plan. Do you hear a motion to approve what I just said?
You can combine them.
You can combine.
I'm going to offer a motion that we adopt the 2026 budget as it's been presented with the corresponding levy in the amount of $8,214,586.
As well as adopting the
Well, it wasn't clear to me if we were doing two motions or one.
You can
Combining them.
Well, then I will continue on speaking. Sorry, I was just catching my breath there, Pete. Also, my motion to recommend the adoption of the attached 2026 capital plan, which has also been presented.
second.
Further discussion? If not, take the roll, please.
Alderman Kittle,
Yes.
Alderman Breeze,
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Gartner,
Yes.
Alderman Volkert,
Yes.
Alderman Montello.
Yes.
Motion passes. New business. Water tower number 3, next steps. Noah.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight, we'd be looking to take the next step forward in terms of the water tower project. As you're aware, over the last couple of years, we've gone through the engineering design. We acquired property out in the Fox Run development. And we're at a position now where we'd like to proceed with soliciting bids. Somewhat similar as we've done with our street and utility projects in the past, where we try to go out for bid over the winter months before contractors get too booked up for the summer construction schedule. So we would look to solicit bids for construction, as well as the inspection services and some of the construction administration. And those bids would come back to the Utility Commission and the council in January. And our hope would be to proceed with construction, spring, early summer of next year, with construction continuing on to late 2027. So tonight, we would just be looking for authorization to proceed with soliciting the bids and proposals.
Mayor, I'm going to offer a motion that we grant authorization to staff to begin soliciting bids as presented for the new water tower.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Take the roll, please.
Alderman Vries,
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Gartner,
Yes.
Alderman Volkert,
Yes.
Alderman Montello,
Yes.
Alderman Kittle.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item, ordinance 632, urban forestry.
Good evening again. So as part of our 2026 budget discussions, we brought forward a proposed urban forestry fee. The purpose of this fee and establishing it would be to ensure that we have necessary resources to address and maintain a sustainable urban canopy within the city of New Richmond. Particularly what we have seen an increased need for is addressing the ash trees within the city. Currently, we have about 339 ash trees remaining in the city's right-of-way or on city-owned land that still need to be removed and subsequently replaced. So over the years, we've applied for grants, which we have been successful in obtaining. However, in more recent years, the emerald ash borer has spread and impacted the health of such ash trees a little bit more aggressively than what had been planned. So we are proposing an implementation of a fee that would help us over the next 5 years address these trees, remove them and replace them, and then in the future continue to address the health and the sustainability of our canopy in Richmond. So the initial fee is proposed at $2.75 per month per parcel. This would be assessed and incorporated on the utility bill. For parcels that do not receive a utility bill, they would be specially assessed on property taxes each November, and then that would show up on property taxes in December when those. So in your packet this evening, we had an existing code. We are underneath section 90 that used to be called trees and shrubbery. We are now renaming that as urban forestry. So there's been a red line in that packet. And then underneath ordinance 632, it's adding some additional definition that was missing in the existing section, and then adding in the fee, which the fee then ties back into the schedule of fees that the council would approve on a annual basis. So staff is recommending approval of the proposed updates to the section 90 of our code of ordinances, and then we are further recommending suspension of the rules and approval of ordinance. This fee would be then implemented beginning January 1st of 2026.
Are the city beautiful? Now, private residences, can they get trees free or a reduced rate? Because they're gonna have to take trees out too on their own properties. Will they be able, since they're putting money into this fund, will they be able to get trees?
So initially, how the fee has been structured is to address just those city-owned trees and those trees in the right-of-way. However, we have discussed, are there certain opportunities that we can do within this fund that maybe provide, support in property owners replanting trees or giving seedlings in order to do that. Those are still things that are fluid that from a staff perspective, we're still trying to work through. And those would be brought back to the council for
I
but
hope
yes,
you look into that.
that is one piece of it that we would be potentially looking at.
I'm going to offer a motion that we approve the proposed updates to section 90 of our code of ordinances and further recommend suspension of the rules and approval of ordinance number 632.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
Where are we at in the process of which trees? And where are we at with bare root trees already? How far are we along in that process? Do we have some of our own trees is what I'm trying to say.
Victor? Yeah, so we still have our gravel bed nursery
Yep.
that's at the wastewater treatment plant. So we've continued to purchase bare root trees in the spring, grow those during the summer, and then transplant in the fall. Now, in any given year, we may have, right, 100 trees that we're putting out there. Meanwhile, we're cutting down obviously considerably more. So, I think as part of this, it's not just looking at the cost of removing the tree and the stump grinding, but how do we go about replacing them? And over the years, we've also been able to kind of experiment through the gravel bed nursery as to what grows well on the boulevard, what hasn't taken off well. But if you go down like Paper Jack Drive, all those new boulevard trees came from our gravel bed nursery. North 4th Street, same thing. But Southview has been a big point of concentration for us. Billmar Avenue had a lot of ash trees. You can tell certain neighborhoods that when they were done, almost every tree on that street was an ash tree. And so, I think also when we look at, areas like that where there's a heavier concentration where we may have to purchase some trees just because the ones we're growing in our gravel bed nursery are awfully small.
Yeah.
So,
Will there be, the urban forester, will he have a suggestion as to what trees to buy for the residents?
in terms of trees that are going on private
Yeah.
property, yeah, I mean, we can certainly give some guidance. The biggest thing that they try to promote is just planting a diversity so
Yeah.
that you're not planting,
All ash
10,
trees?
10 maple tree, 10 ash tree.
Or elm
They look
trees.
nice, and then down the road, something else comes along. And so even on our boulevard trees, you'll see we try to put a variety in case some future pest down the road or something doesn't grow well.
Any other questions? Take the roll, please.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Gartner,
Yes.
Alderman Volkert,
Yes.
Alderman Montello,
Yes.
Alderman Kittle,
Yes.
Alderman Vries.
Yes.
Passes. MOU, library roles and responsibilities.
So included in the agenda packet is a draft memorandum of understanding, which would be discussed here by the council tonight as well as by the library board. And really the purpose of the MOU is to just bring clarity for future staff, future elected officials, future board members, when it comes to matters pertaining specifically to human resources and finance. The library board actually in 2020 approved this. It just really wasn't memorialized in writing, but they actually talked and discussed through these. So there's some things by state statute that's very clear as to what the authority of the library board is. And then in other instances, you kind of see a variety. We have over 300 libraries in Wisconsin, and everybody does things a little differently. So this was really to try to put pen to paper as to everything from who hires the library director to library employees are subject to the employee handbook, just like other employees. So I think as you read through it, some of those things you're going to read and think, well, that's kind of a no-brainer. But we just want to put it in writing so that in the future, if we ever have to reference it, or again, you get new board members on the library board, different council members, and they say, how does that budget work? Who approves that? Or who hires the library employees? It's something we can point back and look to say, hey, we talked about this. It's in black and white. At the same time, in the future, if we ever have to add to this or change it, we bring it back to the council and back to the library board, and we can update it. So, library board discussed this at their meeting last week. They wanted a little more time to look through it, so it'll be on their agenda again at their next meeting. Legal counsel has reviewed this, so any edits from legal counsel were also incorporated in here. So I'm happy to answer any questions that the council has. If you were comfortable tonight approving it, again, library board would also have to approve it, and we would execute it. And again, hopefully a good tool for us going forward, and probably something that we should have had years ago, just to put some of that in writing.
Your motion to approve?
I don't know that I'd want to approve before the library board.
Yeah,
but
I don't even understand the sense of that.
Yeah,
I was wondering that too, but if we approve it, it's going to happen.
then they have to approve it anyway because it's a separate board.
Yeah.
According to the laws of Wisconsin, they have the library board has some different.
Authority.
Yeah, there's some
and
authority by
who-
statute that they
Yeah.
have.
So
yeah.
they would have to approve this either way.
Right, there's some authority the board has just by state statute, regardless of
Yeah.
this. Some of this is just more in practice to say, the library board, right, technically by by statute has the authority to do this, but in practice, here's what we do. Here's how we go about doing some of these things. So it was on the board meeting last week. We put it on the council agenda tonight, thinking that the library board would have approved it last week. The council would approve it tonight. You know, if you approve it tonight, it doesn't obligate the library board to approving it. They'll still be on their agenda.
Well,
So-
I think the question that I have, this doesn't infringe on any of their statutory authority, does it?
No, that's correct.
So then the next question is, why is it incumbent on the library board approving this? If we're saying this is how we want the relationship to be, why do they have to approve it as well?
Because there are some things again, it's not necessarily infringing upon, right? I mean, it says right in the very beginning, you know, the library board retains all authority and power granted to the library board as contained in state statute.
And this
there are
doesn't do
some-
anything to contradict that.
Correct. It really, a lot of this is like, especially when it comes to, you know, there's some library boards that are more involved
Yep.
in day-to-day operations because by statute they can. Our library board hasn't, right? So here we're just putting that in writing, but both bodies should still approve it.
Let me add to that too. There, with library boards in Wisconsin, library board is responsible for the operations. The council is responsible for funding the library. Once the council allocates and appropriates funds for the library, then really everything, or most everything, with respect to operations is the responsibility or falls under the umbrella of the management of the library board. But there are things like, have employees, if a library has employees, are they library employees or are they city employees? City employees, are they subject to the city's handbook? But these types of things aren't specifically spelled out in the statute. And so as we've worked with the library board in years past, I think Noah's found it helpful to fill in those gaps and to identify those areas where the statute just isn't, the statute doesn't say your library employees are city employees. But it's helpful to have a document, a memorandum of understanding that kind of fills in the gaps for the library board and for the city council. So that's, as I looked at it, that was the intent of the MOU, is to provide a playbook, not to change any of the authorities under the law, because we can't do that. And the library board has its own specific responsibilities that it needs to carry out by statute and by express grant of the legislature, but to help provide some of these directional operating functions in writing so that everybody knows how it works, who's paying the paycheck, how are they, you know, ultimately how does the library operate from the perspective of where there's not direct authority granted to the library board itself. You know, what are the things that the city does, knowing that the library board has that authority and oversight over the management and the operation of the library.
So, completely agreeing and understanding with what you just laid out. My question is, and it gets back to the question Craig asked to start with, if we are not infringing on any of their statutory authority, we are documenting this is how we want the relationship to be. And some people will hear this and they're going to hear it wrong, but I'm going to say it anyway. What difference does it make? Yeah, go ahead and approve it or not. If we approve it tonight, which I am leaning towards doing, if the library board came back, and I just asked Greg, you know, they had some stuff they wanted to kind of, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, maybe wanted to do differently, or they had some thoughts about.
Vicky wanted to study it a little bit more.
So,
So
we
tabled it.
But I guess my point is, if we approve it and they don't approve it, again, there's nothing, we're not infringing on their statutory, we're not putting anything in here that we don't have the right to put in there and say, this is the way things are going to be. I understand you want to memorialize how operations are. This isn't really, and again, it sounds stronger than I mean it to, but this isn't really a negotiation. We are merely setting forth, this is how we see the structure of the relationship without anything to do with their statutory authority.
So there are some things in here where, again, in practice, the library board, I'll take interviewing and hiring employees, right? Greg's on the library board. they empower the library director to work with the human resources director. Now, the board, if they said, no, we want to be on the interviews and we want to be involved in that, they could choose to do that. Now, this is trying to memorialize to say, no, they're going to let the library director and the human resource, so there are some things in here that by statute are very clear. There's other things where it is really more by practice to say the board needs to be comfortable memorializing that to say, this is what we've been doing for years, but in theory, they could say, no, we want to be more involved or less involved in some areas.
I would recommend that we pass this and just go with it, because it's those gray areas, and there are some gray areas that cause some friction in there, that can cause some friction. And I think this board should pass it. And then it'll come back, and I think once the next board, I think it's.
All right,
I don't think there's any more negotiation, really. I don't think there's much more. But this just clarifies, and
Sure.
and there are some, I've learned over the last year or so, there are some somewhat gray or cloudy areas in there that do cause it. And personally, I'm very comfortable with the way this is, and I think it covers those areas very, very well.
For
And
sure.
So I'm comfortable.
Yeah,
with-
I appreciate that, and I'm going to offer a motion that we do approve it, but I think Craig had a legitimate question, and as I worked through it in my brain, yeah, go ahead, library board, do your thing. This is what we're saying we want the relationship to be, and if there's issues, they're pretty minor. So sorry for clouding the water. I am recommending that we approve this roles and responsibilities as presented. Yeah, sorry.
I'll second that motion.
I had one question. I read in there that once the council approves the expenditures for the library board can spend it any way they want. So in other words, they might intend to spend it for this, and they might change their minds and spend it for something else. They can do that. 'Cause
Correct.
it's their money
So-
once we approve it.
Right, so let's say that there's a line item in the budget for, just for simplicity, let's say there's a line item for books, there's a line item for CDs, there's a line item for, right? And midway through the year, they want to make a change. As long as it's within that, their allocation, they can do that. That doesn't have to go back
So
to
they
the-
still have means of
Right.
doing things with moving money around.
Right, yep.
No, just for the record, you actually just made a technological mistake that I don't think in all the time you've been here you have, and I want the record to show, he actually referenced the library buying CDs. And I think you're not talking about bank investments. I think those little discs are kind of gone now, so, hey.
Vinyl's making a comeback.
Oh, vinyl. Boy, that ain't even vinyl.
When I take the roll, please.
Alderman Gartner,
Yes.
Alderman Volkert,
Yes.
Alderman Montello.
Yes.
Alderman Kittle,
Yes.
Alderman Vreese.
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item, artesian industry and small-scale manufacturing. Noah.
So this last item was really just for some discussion purposes tonight. We're not having a work session this month. But if you recall, earlier this year, we reviewed a concept plan that was submitted by Jerry Clausen with property he owns on the east side of 140th Street near 140th and County Road K. And there were some concerns about rezoning that property to industrial, in part because, not because of the proposed business that would be there, but looking ahead to say, in the future, if that property were sold, there would be other types of maybe heavier industrial that we wouldn't want to see there. Some communities are, instead of just having one industrial zoning designation, are splitting that out. So they may have more of a artisan industry. So maybe something like a pottery studio, or even something similar to what Antlers by Klaus does, where it's really more of art. This isn't, it's a little different than what you might see in an industrial park. And so some communities are seeing that there's some businesses that, you really aren't going to see on Main Street on your main drag or a heavy retail space, but they maybe also don't fit in a traditional business park either, or up at an airport. And so really wanted to see if there was any interest in the council and staff looking at some options to maybe have some type of a mixed-use district that would allow for both residential, which is what our comprehensive plan guides that area for, and some smaller scale industrial, smaller scale manufacturing. that could still be compatible with one another. And then as part of that conversation, if you look at our current downtown, the Wisconsin Lighting Building and the Antlers by Klaus at their current location was essentially grandfathered in. Our downtown really doesn't allow those industrial type businesses. It really was focused on your offices, your commercial use. And when you think about a lot of growing businesses, they may or may not need a big retail space. And we have some businesses in our downtown that, again, they have employees, they have a nice looking building. You might be able to walk in and buy something, but they don't necessarily rely on a lot of that heavy foot traffic. But there's still a good business to have in your downtown. So in addition to looking at specifically at that land out on 140th and K, and again, that might be a new zoning district altogether, but also looking at some of our existing areas in the community that are developed to say, do we want some more flexibility there so that, again, perhaps some type of business that does some lighter manufacturing or assembly could be there, and maybe over time they grow and expand and they move to the business park or they move to the airport as they outgrow that. But perhaps as a smaller startup business, smaller entrepreneur, a few employees, maybe it still makes sense for them to be in the downtown area. So on this topic, not looking for any formal action or formal motion tonight, but just wanted to kind of get a pulse from this group if it's something that you'd like to see brought back. Jerry Clausen, I did want to say, was going to attend here tonight. He sent the mayor and I email communication here yesterday or this morning. He wasn't able to make it here tonight, but he did have a chance to look through the memo that was included in your packet, and he said he was very supportive of it, as you might anticipate. But he wanted me to just share that he wasn't here because of that he wasn't interested, but had some other travel challenges that came up. So.
Thank you for thinking outside the box, because everybody thinks one size fits all. This is a different case, and I'm glad we're going to look at that. And I'm 100% into looking into this because I think it maybe would make a difference in some other places then too. But I think you are 100% right. We can stop that from being any kind of big manufacturing, but for the smaller scale like that, which fits in right into that property there, I think thinking of the box is great.
I don't have any problem with looking into it also. We've really got to recognize a clear definition of what it is, what an artesian industry is, and what.
Artisan.
What size building, how many employees, all that kind of stuff, because it could grow. Something that would be an artisan building today is expanding into whatever tomorrow. So, and they'd have to move out of an area that they don't want to move out of. And I just want to make sure that we really recognize what it looks like in the long run, and so they're not outgrowing their space and they're going to have to move or something like that. I got a good idea of what some of these areas are from different cities, and I think it's a good idea.
So to that end, how do you want this support? Just people telling you they support it? You want
Yeah,
a
I mean,
motion
we
that
can
says we
certainly-
support?
Yeah, we
doing-
can either reflect it in the minutes that the council is supportive of it, or if someone wants to make a motion just to show support for it, either way is fine. But
I'll offer a motion to support staff doing the research and coming back with a draft ordinance based on the kind of the meat of this memo that you have given to us.
I'll second that.
Further discussion?
Yeah, the only question, I brought this up before, this particular property has already been brought into the city, has it?
correct. Yep.
And will they be hooking up to city sewer and water?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, not knowing what exactly
Yeah.
would get built out there,
Yeah.
but if the property is able to connect to city water and sewer, they would be required to.
Questions? Take the roll, please.
Alderman Volkert,
Yes.
Alderman Montello,
Yes.
Alderman Kittle,
Yes.
Alderman Breeze,
Yes?
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Gartner.
Yes.
Motion passes. Any communication or miscellaneous? Greg?
If I could just remind everyone out there listening that the overnight parking, the winter parking regulations have gone into effect. The compliance hasn't been that great. We've been out giving warnings for these first few weeks. But we would appreciate it if people could follow that, especially as the snow gets near. I know the streets are out sweeping and trying to get the leaves out of the gutters so the water can run when it does melt, and then it just really helps our plow drivers when they can clear all the way to the curb over the course of 2 nights. So if you don't want your roads all bumpy and stuff like that, we need them to get it clean, and to do that, they gotta have clean streets, so.
Can we possibly have a parking, a winter parking ticket that at least has a smiley face on it or something like that?
I don't know that that would help.
Anything else?
Yeah, on that vein, is there any overnight parking available in the city of New Richmond? Lots, streets, anywhere?
Well,
Like
it's
only
all
private?
odd even parking, so they can park on the street, they just gotta follow the odd even parking, but the lots also need to be cleaned at night, so all the lots are posted no parking 2 AM to 6 AM.
How will the, talked about that briefly, no, around the library, because it's on south and east, and what, there's gonna be no parking signs and all the angle parking, is that what I understood?
Correct, we'll have no overnight parking. So some of those signs you'll see being installed here.
Parking lot will be no overnight parking either, right?
Correct. 360 has the option to lease some of those stalls in the
Okay.
parking lot if needed, if the ramp is full. But otherwise, yeah, similar to the other public lots, it'd be no overnight parking.
So if someone had a visitor there overnight, they couldn't park in the angle parking and they can't park in the lot, so they would have to go on one of the side streets further away from there somewhere.
One of the side streets or in the ramp.
If there's room in there. If there's, all right.
Anything else?
Just a reminder that the leaf pickup was extended 1 week. So crews will be out again this coming Monday. So you have 1 more week to rake and bag up.
Do we know how the pumpkin drop went?
Pumpkin drop went great. Thank you for everyone who attended. I did not count the exact number of people, but hundreds of people. So many pumpkins. Thanks to Glenna Farms, who donated an entire truck bed full, a whole field worth of pumpkins. It was great. Don't miss it next year.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed? So moved. We're adjourned.
I know.
So they went back and
It was a
forth.
problem.